Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk, everyone. I hope that you're all doing well. If you're new to the channel or these types of videos, this is where I usually get to go on my more extemporaneous rants without a script, covering things on culture, the goings-on in the world, and politics, while combining it with my favorite hobby of all time. With that, I wanted to talk about the idea of our time being spent on Twitter. It's June 1st, and I can imagine that many people are already cackling and typing away at the idea of quote tweeting various companies that change their profile pictures to the inversion of God's promise to not flood the world in order to celebrate the worst sin of all, pride. I can't help but think to myself how easy it is to get lost in scrolling. The Twitter dunks, the group chats, and so on and so forth. It's kind of necessary when it is the main central platform that helps motivate and push things a lot regarding internet discourse. Yet at the same time, I can't help but think to myself that for nearly 3.5 years that I've been on the app, especially as the Prudentialist, I can't help but think to myself and wonder, what on earth have I seen throughout these last 3-some-odd years or so? It's been a wild ride of various personalities, but more importantly, the rather demonic characters that I've seen on there. People that have no problem announcing that they have guilt-free put themselves in a position where their newborn children are being sent off to childcare while they can enjoy their alone time. Or more so of the same old blackpilling and doom-scrolling that I see with respects to the news. Twitter is, well, like any other platform, I suppose, it has a drug-like quality. But it's not just a drug, it's a platform. This digital ayahuasca that we consume is a place wherein we can ingest these ideas, these tweets, these messages, these pictures, these moving images, and at the same time, it's a place that we can be a part of, we can walk in through it, we can navigate the discourse. It reminds me a lot of what people are actually talking about nowadays with psychedelic uses. There are numerous individuals that are advocating for DMT and LSD, and that the sort of plane of existence or altered state of consciousness your mind goes on is rather similar. Many people share similar experiences when they take these mind-altering drugs, and they want to map it out. They want to be navigators of this altered state of existence. For religious folks, I'm sure that you're probably used to the idea that when you hear these things, or hear the concept of machine elves and whatnot, odds are you're thinking something otherworldly, supernatural, the demonic, and I certainly don't blame you. I think the same thing applies quite well to Twitter, where I can watch the discourse be driven by people that are literally prostitutes telling about the need for eating dog or something else like that, while people will debate endlessly in their own squabbles on various issues ranging from spanking to eugenics, all within the same time. And I'm thinking to myself, I wouldn't know about any of these things if I weren't consuming this drug, this digital ayahuasca that is right in front of me. And in turn, it influences and it changes our perspective on things. People seek this artificial form of theosis with these kinds of drugs, and they try to understand what the real state of the world really is like. If I just keep going down these rabbit holes of threads and of tweets and of videos and of links to resources, eventually I'll reach some kind of enlightenment or based nirvana. But this also goes the other way, too. As I mentioned at the beginning of this little rant here, it is June 1st. It is the start of the so-called Pride Month here in the United States and other more liberalized satrapies of sort of this ideological empire that I happen to live in the heartland of. And it reminds me of a phrase that's been around at least since the 1800s when Hazlitt wrote the great book, The Spirit of the Age. Everyone now, from Francis Parker Yockey to St. Seraphim Rose, has used the term the spirit of the age. And I think that the internet, as well as their ongoing other forms of social incentives and pressures, do a really good job at finding an answer to what that really is. What is the spirit of the age? Recently, I saw a poll from the Pew Research Center. I had no idea how old it was, only to find out it was from 2017, and it said that in the United States, this is a Pew Research thing on the Religion in America polls that they do quite often, they had said that American Muslims were more tolerant of homosexuality than white evangelicals. Absolutely insane if this study is to be true, and if these reports are accurate. I find them actually to be accurate. I actually believe the answers that are being purported in this Pew Research poll, in part because foreign religions coming into the United States, whether that be the concept of anti-fascism, or in this instance, this sort of global homogenizing, as Kierkegaard would say, the leveling of all things, this form of liberalism that we exist in, incentivizes the other, incentivizes outside groups to join in on this coalition. This coalition, of course, ensures that as long as you're all on board with these various issues, you can join on in and receive the benefits and incentives that come with being part of the favored minority class. After all, this broad spectrum coalition that liberalism inhabits tends to go for the outsiders more than anyone else. And so the spirit of the age, this homogenizing liberalism, it's seeing something in America that I'm not seeing so much in the UK. In the UK, at least the Muslims that are there, and my personal opinion is they shouldn't be there to begin with, is at least they're the ones that are standing up and opposing homosexuality due to their own Islamic religious beliefs. The Mohammedans have no problem speaking out against the transgender and LGBTQ+ ideologies that are being pushed upon in Great Britain and the British Isles. While here in America, it seems to be far more homogenizing, that the idea of strict traditional religious adherence is withering away because there is something far more tempting. The idea that you are on the right side of history. It doesn't matter about what happens to your soul after death. What happens is will your fellow man remember you as someone that was on the right side of history? Did you say the right things? Did you prostrate yourself before the correct shibboleths? Did you do everything necessary to ensure that you were advancing human rights and democracy in the West? That you were standing up to the big bad evil guys according to our narratives that we'd see on there? Or you're doing your part in ratioing Ted Cruz? Well, are you also very happy with the fact that he's standing up for gay rights in Uganda, a country that has its own belief system and has its own rigorous laws and culture, that is willing to stand against these sort of ideas? Not just with propitiation, but also with a firm desire to actually punish such behavior. The form of liberalism that I think we live under here in the United States, and I use that term very generally because we don't really seem to define what liberalism would be, or that the root cause of the problem may just be atheism, or depending on your own tradition, it may be something else like nominalism and so on and so forth. I can't help but think to myself that this is the totalizing aspect of the spirit of the age, that its temptations, the idea that you want to be a part of something greater than yourself, the social agreeability, how easy it is to simply no longer bend down on your knees and to pray, or to stand up and say, no more of this, I oppose, or to go back to Romans 1 and refer back to the instances of immorality, especially in a sexual sense. You can see then someone who's touted himself as a Bible thumper or an arch-conservative of social and family values like that of Ted Cruz, a senator from Texas, a Republican who's been well known for his kayfabe, whether it be on the issues of Obamacare or talking about the debt or privacy, and now this is the stand that he wants to make on, is sub-Saharan sodomy. Nevertheless, I can't help but think to myself that this is the spirit of the age. Twitter gives you access to the spirit of the age. You can ingest it. You can be a part of it, navigating through its twists and turns, its doctrines and dogmas, far more contradictory and far more nonsensical than any established Western or Eastern religion out there. And there it is, telling you to become a part of it, to homogenize, to level yourself. You can have differing opinions on economics. You can have differing opinions on what kind of hobbies are more interesting, or what better video game, or what major multi-billion-dollar corporation is doing more for your cause than anybody else. But if you disagree on these core tenets, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to be kicked out and sent elsewhere. You can see this especially in the last 25 years or so, really almost 30, at least as long as I've been alive. And what I've witnessed has been this gradual decline, not in the usual memeable sense of the West has fallen, but I mean this decline in where people are willing to say no. The learned helplessness has kicked in, individuals are willing to agree and forsake their beliefs, or simply watch their children, the people that they raised, send them off to the wolves, the very institutions that will ensure that the spirit of the age is put well within their hearts, that they are catechized and brought into it. And some of you are probably wondering, why am I speaking so much in a religious sense? And that's because all things eventually do become political theology. Our first principles are based upon belief, what we can observe, and those things are formulated into theology. Dr. Henry Hopwood Phillips said that bad theology makes for bad realities, and the spirit of the age has a destructive, anti-civilizational theology, one that tells us that the only enlightenment, the only way in which we can commune ourselves with anything greater than ourselves, is to ensure that we are on the right side of progress. Twitter, the digital ayahuasca, whatever you may take and ingest, even the mainstream news is a part of it, although albeit an older formula of the type of drugs that we take, illustrates a strange cause and course of perdition. And this is where we are. I think the biggest challenge that will lie ahead for anyone, especially those raised in the post-2007 iPhone and social media age, where we are now algorithmically catechized to believe certain things in what we do and what we say, is going to be the ability to say no and to actually have principles. There's a seemingly lack of spines in our society, and the spirit of the age has no problem encouraging you to take out your own backbone for the sake of agreeing with the new conformity, the new zeitgeist of the age. These are the things that I've been thinking about as we lead up to June 1st, and these are the things that have been on my mind for quite some time now, especially as I look at politics today. Religious belief will be necessary going forward in the future because the spirit of the age has been able to conquer most forms of religion, whether it is eating the insides out of various Christian churches and denominations, convincing American Muslims and their children that the things that they were taught by their so-called prophet are actually not kosher and should actually be supportive of homosexuality, indicates that the spirit of the age is powerful enough to stand up on its own against most major religions. The question becomes now a question to its faithful. Those of you who do not buy into the spirit of the age, what will you be doing to resist? Can you resist temptation to be led not into it by that higher power? Can you do what is necessary to say no? And are the drugs that you're taking, whether digital or real, are you willing to monitor, moderate, and stand firm in how much you take or ingest in order to maintain your principles and habits? For many people, the idea of ritual and belief is dying, and it is being replaced very clearly with something else. The temptations of the evil one, whether it be in Target stores or on every major social media profile picture of most Western corporations. These are the things that we have to be mindful of. We must guard our intellect, and we must pursue a path, the royal path, in order to ensure that we too are not dragged down into darkness, the darkness of the spirit of the age.